Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on the ShOUT Show. I'm your host, Preacher Moss. Hope that you had a fabulous weekend. We sign off after Thursday, and sometimes when we sign off on Thursdays, we think that we're just going to come back into a regular Monday, but we had a very active weekend with the loss of four individuals. Lanny Guinier, famous civil rights attorney, James Ntume of Juicy Fruit, and Miles Davis and McCoy Tyner, fame, comedian Bob Saget, and of course, a very huge loss in our community, not just community, but our culture. We lost, of course, Mr. Tibbs, Mr. Sidney Poitier. Today's show, we're going to break down a little bit, and we have a lot of things that are going on. But I thought today would be really important to focus on, of course, Mr. Sidney Poitier. At the time I started pulling this together, we hadn't lost the other three people that I mentioned. May Allah be pleased with them and give them the highest levels of paradise. But it just appealed to me that across the board, with the exception of Bob Saget, that the three icons that we had lost, one in law, one in music, and one in acting, all have the beautiful, if you will, the beautiful status of being servants. When I say servants to our community, I mean in the aspect of what Lanny Guinier did in terms of talking about civil rights and voting rights, what Sidney Poitier meant to us in a larger scope about acting a black manhood and more so, brothers and sisters, just that calmness, if you will, for a lot of folks my age and around my periods. Sidney Poitier was our first. He was our Barack Obama, if you will. When I say Barack Obama, I mean that he had a certain type of surety. He had a definitely sense of purpose and elegance, if you will. He walked a certain way we wanted to walk. He talked a certain way he wanted to talk. And all that gravitas that I'm talking about, brothers and sisters, comes from the fact that he came from a place where, brothers, I can be totally honest, he came from a place where they didn't have that. He came from the islands, through Nassau to Miami to New York, and I'm going to talk about that, but really be able to talk a little bit more about why it's important now. I was looking at the AFI celebration of Sidney Poitier, and what they did for Sidney Poitier was they had people in the audience. Let me tell you some of the people that were in the audience. Now, if I start mentioning names that you haven't heard of before, I'm going to tell you a reason. You had Walter Matthau, you had Berry Gordy, you had Jack Lemmon, you had Morgan Freeman, you had Betty White, you had so many prolific actors in that space. And the reason you don't hear from them is the fact that back during those times, actors came to screen through theater. There was a proving ground, if you will. There was a launching pad, if you will. And Sidney Poitier and people like Harry Belafonte used that pad to kind of open up this whole aspect, not for black actors. There was an abundance of black actors. There was abundance of black talent, brothers and sisters, but it was access. We needed someone to get through that space. And of course, Sidney Poitier, he got his Academy Award for Lilies in the Field, which is a beautiful film. But what I like as a young man, because I can't tell you I saw Lilies in the Field. I was in that space where I saw Buck and the Preacher, and I saw Uptown Saturday Night, Let's Do It Again, Piece of the Action, films like that, and Sneakers, where I knew, brothers and sisters, that this was a special man that we were watching. However, he was generous enough to say, while I'm a serious actor, I can still make you smile with pictures and photographs and images of people who look like you. All right? So what we're going to do is, to start to show off, I'm going to show you, brothers and sisters, from the heat of the night, one of the most famous and prolific, if you will, slaps that was ever. It's one of the top moments in Hollywood production and film, if you will. It's called The Slap, heard around the world. Zatano, can you bring that up for us? The Slap, heard around the world.
Well, we don't want to take any more of your time, Mr. Endicott. Why did you two come here?
to ask you about Mr. Colbert.
Let me understand this. You two came here to question me?
Well, your attitudes, Mr. Endicott, your points of view are a matter of record. Some people, well, let us say the people who work for Mr. Colbert might reasonably regard you as the person least likely to mourn his passing. We were just trying to clarify some of the evidence. Was Mr. Colbert ever in this greenhouse, say last night about midnight?
Gillespie?
Yeah,
You saw it.
I saw it.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
I don't know.
I'll remember that. There was a time when I could have had you shot.
Queuing that up. I actually got let me see. Thank you, Zatano. I had gotten so wrapped up in that slap. I have to tell you guys something. Okay, the heat of the night. I loved the heat of the night with Carol O'Connor and Howard E. Rollins and all of that. But it was this film, brothers and sisters. I don't know if there's a way to explain a whole collective from the African American community of hell yeah, but it was a hell yeah. And to look at Sidney when he just shook him off and left, it was empowering, brothers and sisters. We hadn't seen that type of thing before. Now I'm gonna tell you, I love my Pygmy Mark. I love my Moms. Maybe I love my Red Fox. I love my Nipsey Russell. I love my man Jan Moreland. But Sidney Poitier, that was a man. And a man in a way that he reminds us of a certain type of dignity. And when I say a certain type of dignity, I'm not talking about the regular, everyday dignity. It's a thing that you carry. It reminds me that you came from someplace. It reminds me that you didn't get there easy. People didn't give it to you. And once you got there, you didn't forget it. You didn't act like you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Clearly, you come with a certain set of core values and they travel. We're going to be talking about my main man, Sidney Poitier, but I want to give a shout out and welcome back to our Shout Out Show family. I hope all of you had a great weekend. Let's go ahead and get into the comment section. Let's get some love going in our section today. Of course, we got Sister Ree. How you doing, Sister Ree? Good to see you. Thank you so much for all the goodwill that you sent to me and my family. I appreciate you. You know that. And big shout out to Derek going on the road, going out to make that money. Peace and blessings to you as you travel, brother. Peace and blessings to you as you travel. Shout out to Jawan. Thank you so much, Sister Reed. Next up, my main man, Altaf Rashid. How you doing, beloved? Welcome back to the show. Peace and blessings to you and your family. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, always on time. Like I like to say, NOI, he is on post for the Shout Out Show, a Canadian ambassador to the show, making sure the quality of the show is good on this side of the border and that side of the border. My main man, thank you so much for joining us. Next up, and this is Philadelphia's finest, my main man, Jihad Ahmed. Beloved, what's going on with you, man? Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting our platform anybody knows, you got to check out, Acres of Diamonds, his broadcast that he does in Philadelphia. He supports my show. I support his show. Jihad, we got to work out to get you on here, and I hope that things are working out with your show, man. You always have me in your duas. In fact, I was inspired to do my own platform watching you do what you do, brother. I remember when you used to be on the radio. A lot of folks don't know. If you're in Philadelphia, you want to hear some good content about Muslim politics and politics in general and current events and entertainment, you can check out Jihad Ackman's show. Jihad, get us an email. Please go to email us at permissiblelaughter@gmail.com so we can get a link to your show. All right, beloved? Appreciate you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right. Next up. Let's see. That slap was deep. Yes, indeed, brother. I love that slap. I'm just like, I remember being in a fight. You used to have interracial fights during busing back in the day. I remember slapping a white kid like that, and I felt so good about myself. He just make the whole body turn. I was like, that's it. Looked like he was leaving. All right. Who we got here? Bilal Salahuddin. What's going on, my beloved brother? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us on the platform today. Bilal, you got to rate that slap, man. That is one of the greatest slaps that's not connected to your family that we have ever seen. Yeah, I'm sure mama got that arch in there, but we're talking about hitting and smacking a white man on screen. That made, in the heat of the night, an automatic #1 film throughout the African American community. I think it even lapped Dolomite. All right. What's going on, beloved? My main man, I will say it if there are any spies listening, this is brother Eric Carter, but to me, brother, you always going to be Eric. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Eric. Thank you so much for joining us on the platform. We appreciate your presence. Hope you're having a blessed day. Next up. And my main man, this is my big brother, Leon Alexander Jr., better known as the electrifying drummer on Love Supreme Anatomy of Gratitude, which is actually streaming on ushub.tv. Ushub.tv, brothers. This is that new Muslim streaming service. You want to check it out. L, what's going on, man? Give a shout out to Big Leon. I don't even know I call him Big Leon. I call him Mr. Alexander. You just Leon. So, give a shout out to my partner. Let him know we thinking about him. We love him. All right. Next up, we got Sister Zatano, who's our consulting producer. Thank you so much for being on the show and making this thing happen, Sister Zatano. We depend on you in more ways, and we can even. I know I depend on you in more ways than I can even think of. The show has grown, but you've allowed it to grow, and we appreciate you every day you're here. So every day you get your flowers. We're not gonna be late on that one. So Sister Zatano, thank you so much. So let's get to it. Let's see. That's the best slap in the history of TV. You ain't lying. That's a classic one. So, let me tell you why I thought it was important to celebrate Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier personifies a different type of thing in terms of your artist, in terms of your actor, in terms of your entertainer. He coming from the islands, he framed this rather beautifully that when he was at the islands, his color was just his color. It wasn't a condemnation. He said when he came to Nassau and he came to the United States, Miami and New York, he figured that his color was a condemnation. And he said he made a very conscious choice to make sure that he wasn't trying to tell people who were condemning him that I want to be equal to you. He said, no, I'm going to frame it that I'm going to be better than you, whether you like it or not. Whether I like it or not. The idea is that I'm going to be better than you. I'm going to present a product that's really, really interesting. And in that space, what I love about Sidney Poitier is the fact that he didn't let Hollywood define him. If you look at his roles in Leaders of the Field, To Serve With Love, and even the comedies with Let's Do It Again, Uptown Saturday Night, Piece of the Action, what he framed for all of us was the fact that he was producing his own content. While he was the first African American to ever receive an Oscar, what I want people to focus on was that he was doing this work before he got the Oscar. He was a working actor. He had what was the trifecta at the time. In the Heat of the Night, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and he had one more. I forget. I'm sorry, but just guess who's coming to dinner addressing interracial marriage or relationships in the heat of night, talking about race. And he also did the Defiant Ones with Tony Curtis. So I'm like, you begin to understand something. But let me throw this out here. Sidney Poitier, much the same as Cicely Tyson, much the same as, okay, we'll say Morgan Freeman, and even at his age now, he's getting older, Denzel Washington. They represent something that we don't talk about enough, which is the African American theater. You see, Belafonte and of course Sidney Poitier start out at the American Negro Theater in Harlem. The story goes that he shows up in New York at 15 years old. He has $3 in his pocket, and he's going up and down Broadway, and he eats through his $3 in his pocket. He sees a sign that says dishwasher. He goes in, he gets a job as a dishwasher. It pays $4 a day. Now, on one of his travels through New York, up through Harlem, he sees a sign that says Actors Wanted. I think he saw it in a newspaper, Actors Wanted, and he went to actually go and be an actor. Now, there's two versions of this story. One, that he went to be an actor, and the guy said, well, here's a script. Now, this is the first time Sidney Poitier actually has a physical script. And he admits that he mumbled through it. And he went like that. And the guy told him, get out of here. Learn not to waste people's time. That was a mantra for him. Don't waste people's time. And as a result, he was, I want to say, destined to come back and be something greater than what this man said. This man told him, why don't you just go be a dishwasher someplace, not knowing that he was a dishwasher. And his whole idea was to be framed as something other than a dishwasher in this man's mind. We're not talking about his greatness. We're talking about his humility to satisfy the fact that someone looked at him differently and he wanted to change perceptions. That will be an ongoing theme for Sidney Poitier. Now we say, how did Sidney Poitier become Sidney Poitier? Okay, funny story. The other story of what I told you is that he actually got turned down by the American Negro Theater because of his accent. He was West Indian. He's from the islands. His accent was too thick. They turned around. He came back. But he said he listened to a lot of radio and things like that and movies, and he worked on his accent. But he comes back and gets into the theater. He's an understudy for the world-renowned, world-famous Harry Belafonte. Now, let me tell you guys what you're dealing with in terms of actors. This is how Sidney Poitier gets his break. Harry Belafonte was a lead in this play. He tells a story that he was a lead in this play. He collected garbage during the day. That was his job, and Sidney Poitier worked as a dishwasher. As fate would have it, on this one play, Sidney Poitier was his understudy. On this one particular day, Harry Belafonte couldn't get off to be in a play. And as a result, his understudy, Sidney Poitier, had to take over for him. Because, you couldn't afford to be broke. That's what he said. Pretty funny. On this particular day that Sidney Poitier subs for him, a producer comes down, a casting agent, loves Sidney Poitier, puts him in a Broadway show called Lysistrata. The rest is history. So what is it we really want to know about Sidney Poitier? What are some of the ideas that you've had about this man? Like for me, I've had the pleasure of watching someone who came from the theater to get into films, and there's a certain DNA type that you can type in. Like I love a lot of comedians, African American comedians. I love us, but a lot of us, we do comedy. We don't know anything about the theater. We know we're going to write these jokes. And as a result, sometimes I feel like we're limited. We put ourselves in a box. Sidney Poitier taught me early, and he taught a lot of people early, not to put yourself in a box. That it was imperative that somewhere along the line that you had to look at yourself and say, I'm beyond what the box is trying to put me in. And so he goes on to produce and direct and all those type of things. And I think it's lovely for us to be able to see that. Because, we have people who are famous now, who've achieved a lot. Why? Because people didn't put them in a box. If you get a chance, go to the OWN network and look at some of the videos that Oprah Winfrey put up of her and Sidney Poitier. They are priceless. They are something that you need to see in terms of giants. One giant to another giant. One legend to another legend. And this legend says, I'm doing what I'm doing because of you. I myself, without hesitation, will tell you, I'm here because of people like Sidney Poitier, who allowed me to dream and think differently, who allowed me at a very young age to see them on the screen in roles that were dignified. My favorite film is Buck and the Preacher. The reason I like Buck and the Preacher is, my daddy was big on Westerns. He loved Westerns. I liked Cisco Kid. He liked Tex Ritter. But when I was a kid, he took me to the movie to go see Buck and the Preacher. And there I was watching Sidney Poitier, Ruby Dee, and of course Harry Belafonte on screen as black folk who were empowered. In fact, the character of Buck, played by Sidney Poitier, was a man who was trying to lead slaves from Louisiana to freedom. And Harry Belafonte played another role, but he fell in the line because he loved the idea of Buck's character trying to help other black folk. Brothers and sisters, we don't see that as much anymore. Hollywood does not reward the people who necessarily spend a lot of time on their craft. It's a very microwave environment. Whoever's hot, you put them up. Whoever has the most likes. It's fun to watch Sidney Poitier going, that guy got famous. That guy became a legend with no lights. With no thumbs up, no thumbs down. He was his own man. And I hope in my own career that I can be that person, to be that free. I've tried and I will continue to try. And I would encourage support from all of us. But, there's only one Sidney Poitier. So I'm going to run a little clip for you brothers and sisters. Just to kind of get a little bit of feel, but go forward. If you have any notes that you want to make on Sidney Poitier, please put them in the comment section. This is a celebration. Normally, sometimes I get in a situation, I'm looking at the racism, the da-da-da. I'm like, no, this was an artist who figured it out. So, in celebration of our artists that figure it out, let's celebrate. Zatano, can you put us up on the screen? All right, thank you.
There were great actors before Sidney Poitier, and great ones since. But the world would have been markedly different without Poitier, the first black performer to win an Oscar for Best Actor.
Because it is a long journey to this moment. I am naturally indebted to countless numbers of people.
Poitier, who has died at 94, helped reshape that world to such a degree that we'll never be able to fully reckon with his impact. In 1949, he auditioned on a whim for a Hollywood movie. He was as surprised as anyone when he landed the part, in Joseph L. Mankiewicz's No Way Out. Poitier continued to land significant roles through the 1950s, but the early years of the decade, just as his career should have been taking off, were relatively dry ones. Fortunately, that changed in the 1960s. Poitier reprised a role he'd played on Broadway in Daniel Petrie's film version of A Raisin in the Sun. He also had roles in To Sir with Love from 1967, In the Heat of the Night, also from 1967, the romantic comedy For Love of Ivy, 1968, and in 1967, he played the Guess Who in Stanley Kramer's Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, alongside Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy.
I'm your son. I love you. But you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man.
It was Poitier's turn in Ralph Nelson's Lilies of the Field, which earned him a Best Actor Oscar in 1964. In the 1970s, Poitier turned to directing, a way of having more control over how people of color were portrayed on screen. But Poitier will be best remembered as an actor and as a presence, a force not just on the cultural landscape, but on a broader political one, too. Poitier knew his career had opened a door for others. He saw his own work as a beginning. Bigotry and racism still thrive, But Sidney Poitier believed in and worked for a world without that hatred. We have only to look at his life's work, and we can believe it, too.
I accept this award in memory of all the African American actors and actresses who went before me in the difficult years, on whose shoulders I was privileged to stand to see where I might go.
Great breakdown, man. You know, I was watching an interview that Sidney Poitier talked about the impetus for how he became an actor, and allow me a little flexibility, a little elasticity on this. He said that when he was on the island, when he was back in the islands, that he and his friends would get into trouble. He was a little bit, rambunctious, if you will. And on this one particular incident, as he says, he and his friends were on a farm and they stole some corn. And they went in the middle of somebody's field and they roasted the corn. Incidentally, as a result, people saw the smoke, I guess the fire. And he and his 2 or 3 friends were arrested for stealing this corn, and they were incarcerated. He said, Sidney Poitier said his father had to come get him. He said his father was really irritated because, one, he had to pay 10 shillings to get him out of jail. And he said his actions put his father in a space doing things that he normally wouldn't do. That his father had to go to places to round up this money, not because he was humble, but it was because of something his son had done. And as a result, he and his mother made the decision that he had to leave the islands. He had to leave Nassau. He had a brother in Miami, and he went to Miami, ultimately went up to New York City. He shows up in New York City at 15 years old. But listen to what he said about this. He said before he left, his mother cobbled together some money to get him some shirts and some pants for him to go to the United States. And she was buttoning his shirt. She was buttoning his shirt and told him to never forget. To never forget. Now, he says that from that time, he left and went to the United States. And in the span of about 8 years, he never went back to see his parents. He never sent word back to see his parents. And I thought that was really, really strange. I was like, wait a minute, you didn't send a letter or a note? But I'm thinking, this is back, of course, in the 50s and the 60s. So, I have to be a little clear-minded about this thing. But what he said was, brothers and sisters, that he didn't send anything back. He didn't send word back. And he said the most profound thing. He said by the time he went back to see his parents, it was a period of almost over 8 years. And he told the interviewer the reason he didn't write back, he said because he didn't want to write a letter, send it to his parents without there being money in it. That he couldn't send them anything. In turn, he said, you don't send a letter to your parents knowing what they sacrificed and you send them back just a letter. He said it had to be something that demonstrated that he was working. That the appreciation was not for the money. The appreciation was for the way that you raised me. The appreciation was for the core values that you gave me. And I thought that was absolutely stunning. And how many of us think that way? How many of us frame our work and our success on the fact that the people we stand on and the people who stood with us, our parents, our mothers, our fathers, our sisters and brothers, it's a whole cadre of people you can throw in there. But it's just the fact that the man had the humility to say, I can't go back to this person with a letter. I have to go back to these people with a framing of success, that what they believed about me came true. That they thought I could succeed, I have to go back to success. Whether that be money, whether it be physical presence. And I thought it was the most profound thing I've heard in quite a long time, brothers and sisters. So, we are already pushed up on that point about Sidney Poitier. Please, again, let me throw this out. Also want to give a shout out to Sister Ika. Her daughter had surgery today. Inshallah, Allah give you shifa and success with the surgery. Brothers and sisters, this whole thing, life, if you will, I don't like to say it's so fragile. I like to say it's very finite. it's just not finite to us. That there's a beginning and a middle and an end. We say that thing with certain certainty, but we don't know where it is. We don't know when our beginning is, our middle is, and our end is, but we throw it in. You know, Sidney Poitier throws this idea out to me that in our spaces, we need to be experts of improving the space, not just for our existence, but for those around us. The idea that he was an actor that held the door and hold the door open for other people is very, very true. But he held the door open because that's what you do when you lead with humanity. That's what you do when you believe in the greater good of the people. Yeah, he talked about his mother, the work she used to do. She used to break stones. This was in the Oprah interview. She used to go out and get rocks, and then she'd break the rocks into smaller rocks, and somebody would come. And Oprah said, well, she got, what, $4 a pound? He said, no. She got $6 a ton. And the person who would come get the rocks would come every 3 to 4 months. And she would constantly break these rocks. $6 for a ton. Now, brothers and sisters, if that doesn't make you excited about the wherewithal and love of parents, the sacrifice and what they do for us, I'm sorry, you ain't a great kid. You're not a thankful individual. But listen, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna go there. But I want to make sure I shout out one of my musical heroes again, Brother James Ntume. I loved your work with McCoy Tyner, Miles Davis. Everybody remembers Juicy Fruit. If you love Notorious B.I.G. But he was a jazz guy. His father was Jimmy Heath, just so you guys know. He was one of the ones that successfully made that transition, but he was always a jazz guy. Lanny Guinier, I salute you, sister, because I remember when Bill Clinton withdrew your nomination to be the head of the Justice Department. And he withdrew it because he gave in to cowardly advice and he gave in to conservative pressures. All she ever did, brothers and sisters, was write law about how you address racial discrimination. And the people who were doing the racial discrimination, guess what? They made her the racist. They made her the bad person. I'm going to say bad guy. But, you know, I respect her. I respect her because she continued her work at Harvard. She was the first woman of color that was tenured at Harvard University. And she kept it moving, brothers and sisters. And that's what we have to do. God bless her and her family. And Bob Saget, a fellow comedian, I never met you, but I did meet the great comedian Dave Coulier, who worked with you on Full House. He had nothing but fun things to say about you. Peace and blessings to your family. A loss to the comedy community. And wow, that's pretty much it. Did I leave out anyone, Zatano? Bob Saget. I think I got all four. Alhamdulillah. So, brothers and sisters, we're going to go ahead and get our wrap up. Let's get our sponsors in here now. Let me see. Leon, thank you for sharing this segment. Thank you, Lee. Well, Leon's a drummer, and Mtume was, he was a percussionist. He played congos with Miles Davis. So, Leon, I know you probably going to go get a couple of those Miles albums. I know you. If anyone here wants to hear Mtume's work, pick up Miles on the Corner. Great album. Okay. So we want to get to our sponsors. We want to give a shout out, of course, to BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. You can call 202-508-3780. Again, that's 202-508-3780. If you're thinking about a quality graduate level Islamic education, you got to check out Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Islamic Graduate School located in Claremont, California, with programs in Islamic education. Yours truly got one. Is Masters in Islamic Studies, Islamic Leadership. Also, one of the best programs, Masters of Divinity, with a focus in Muslim chaplaincy. You gotta make sure you check them out. Go to banonline.org. Again, that's banonline.org. Don't slip, don't trip. Make sure you check it out. Next up, we want to give a shout out. Of course, you know where we're going. We'll give a shout out to ushub.tv. Again, that's ushub.tv, brothers and sisters. They are doing amazing stuff. They are, I think, the Muslim streaming services that actually has the right formula. You can check out my comedy special, Love Supreme Anatomy of Gratitude, which is streaming right now. We're going to do a big kickoff for Black History Month. In fact, I'm going to try and get the guys from the experience of Love Supreme to actually come on screen. We can talk about that. I think it'd be great. But make sure you support them, brothers and sisters. I believe that they have the model. You know, it's not a Muslim Netflix. It's not a Muslim Hulu, because then that kind of bastardizes the reason why you're doing it. You're trying to create something organic, and I believe that they have the formula, and they do have my support. Go to usub.tv, usub.tv. And my brothers and sisters, you know what it is. We do. We have, of course, our brothers and sisters who came on and really have helped us out. They're doing the tough work out there. In Houston, I'm talking about convenienturgentcare.com. Again, that's convenienturgentcare.com. Go to www.convenienturgent.com. Again, that's www.convenienturgent.com. Zatano, do we have the video queued up? We do not? All right, brothers and sisters, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to have that video queued up for you. That's my fault. We're going to bring it on right now. Zatano, if you come on, I'll cue the video up. Can you talk to him a little bit? Zatano don't want to come by. She's like, do it tomorrow. Do it tomorrow. All right. We will do it tomorrow, brothers and sisters. We premiered Don't Catch the COVID on the show. Jihad, I'm going to send a copy to you. I think I sent one to Leon. But we will have Don't Catch the COVID on the show tomorrow. That's my bad. But listen, I appreciate you guys. Listen to me. Give me an opportunity to talk about the importance of these people on this show. Do your research. That would be fun. Do your research and get to know a little bit more about why they're important, why we put them up on the show. Who we got here? Steve Brown. James and Toomey also worked and wrote songs with Reggie Lucas, to including Never Knew a Love Like This before. I also wrote that spot for, yeah, that's right, Phyllis Hyman, who actually trashed him in an article. But that's okay. Stevie Brown from Milwaukee. What's going on, beloved? Hope you're doing well. Peace and blessings to you and your family. Steve Brown is one of my good friends and a comedian in the great city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We came up doing comedy together. Steve, I hope you're out there still hitting that microphone. All right, so listen, we're going to get up here and get out of here. You guys have been awesome. I got to bounce. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. It's Preacher Moss at SOS. Sound like... Why would I do a CD called Confessions of a Muslim Comedian? And that was the idea of bringing entertainment to Muslims, for Muslims, about Muslims, but for everybody. I got Dean in my life. Who is Dean? But you bring Dean around here. You know how Muslims get you all hyped up? And he said, brother, you ready to be Muslim? I said, yeah. He said, you know what that means? I said, tell me, brother. He said, you ready to give up the swine? I said, yes, sir. I'm giving up the swine. He said, are you ready to give up the alcohol? I said, yes, sir. I'm ready to give up the alcohol. He said, you ready to give up the women? I said, yes, sir. I'm ready to give up the alcohol.